Hello, everyone. Welcome to ELI, the only podcast in India where we bring a new founder on every episode to talk about their journey and their story of building a startup. And today we have with us Anand, who is the founder of Rian, which is a AI platform and a services company for voiceovers, translations, and other use cases. Hi, Anand. Welcome to ELI.
Hi, thank you for having me. Really appreciate and looking forward to the conversation.
Likewise. To start with, Anand, before we start talking about the company itself, would love to hear about your journey, your past life. Where were you born? Where you brought up? Where did you study? Where did you work? And how did you arrive at entrepreneurship?
Right. So I started my career in Japan, but before that, I was born and brought up in Pune,
Mm-hmm.
and then did my engineering in Mumbai. And after that, I got an opportunity to work in Japan for almost 13 years. And I still am connected with Japan. I go there like a couple of times in a year. Still very much connected. But 13 years I spent in Japan. I worked with several companies, and my the last job was right like with Citigroup in Japan, where I led analytics and alternative team.
Mm-hmm.
And again, right, like I mean, I have a lot of influence like of Japan as I worked right like in Japan. I mean, I really right like I mean, most of our business is also right like with Japan at this moment, if you see.
Wow.
After coming back to India, I started couple of ventures. Some of the ventures, right, like initially, like when we started, they didn't do well. A few, right, like did pretty well, and that's how, right, like my journey started with this entrepreneurial journey. And from 2020 21, I started investing in few companies. So I've invested, right, like in 15 companies so far.
Wow.
And yes, I'm just right like an operator and enjoying the journey. That's what right like I've been doing.
Got it. And how did this company Rian happened? Was it a AI company from the very beginning, or did you over time realize that AI is, a big enabler, and you sort of, started experimenting?
Right. No, so that's a very good question. So I initially started working and creating products that are similar to what I did at Citigroup. So we built some products around few platforms. And when I was pitching that in Japan, what happened? I mean, many companies they said that instead of these analytical products, equity research related products, we're looking for a Japanese translation. And I mean, since I was pitching in Japanese at that time, I mean, we naturally got right like few Japanese translation requests, and that's how we started the company. So it was not that like we wanted to build this translation and localization company.
Mhm.
But in back in 2014, 2015, I saw that the technologies were very much in nascent stage. So I thought of using technology and doing translation. So we started creating small tools around localization and translation.
Mhm.
And that like over the period, right, like we built the complete platform.
Got it. I believe you also run another venture called DG Future Tech. Uh,
Yes.
Tell us a bit about that before we, jump onto the deep aspects of Rian.
Yes, yes. So that product also, right? Like I mean, as I mentioned, I started with equity research products. So we spent almost 4 years building 8 products, and those were right like on several platforms, including some large equity research related platforms used. What we found after 4 or 5 years that we are not able to sell those products in an effective way. So we pivoted the company in 2016-17 and started focusing on a payment gateway company. So DG Future Tech, earlier the name was Visitech Solutions, was helping with the backend of the payment, one of the largest payment gateway companies in Japan. So we started with transaction monitoring, then releases, then we built right like the backend infrastructure or support right like for that company, and then we have now started with development as well. So this company got acquired in 2021 by this listed group, Digital Garage Group, and we are now part of the overall group,
Mhm.
Digital Garage Group
Got it.
in
All
Japan.
right. So let's now go deep into the domain of voice AI and translation. I think AI has been a big buzzword recently, or maybe in last 3 years. AI has been the biggest trend in any industry you go, and rightfully so. Would love to understand, in AI there are a lot of use cases. There are different models, different tools out there. Which of the use cases that you have been solving at Rian?
Yeah. So initially, to start with, we focused on document localization. We focused on document localization from 2017-18 by using different AI platforms or AI APIs, that were available at that point. But the whole idea was to build a platform that will serve, right, like that will give the last mile delivery as well. But what happened in 2022, 23, I saw that synthetic AI, synthetic voices, right, like we're getting quite better. So at that time, I decided to focus and start seeing the opportunities in the video dubbing side. Although, right, like, I mean, there is still, right, like there are still areas where we need to work on. It's not 100% accurate, but it's like we found that that could be, right, like a good opportunity, and we started investing our time and building the platform around dubbing, creating a multilingual dubbing studio.
Mm-hmm.
So although, right, like as you mentioned, rightly mentioned, there could be a lot of applications in AI. So our focus is primarily on localizing high quality content. I mean, uh, it could be YouTube videos, it could be OTT platform web series, it could be movies, uh, 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 TED talks. I mean, there could be a lot of high quality like content. I mean, we want to multiply those content by bringing them in multiple languages.
Got it. Uh, and when you spoke about YouTube, I think YouTube has been doing a lot of work around translation as well, translation and voice AI. What I have observed is it has not cracked the translation thing well. When you listen to a voiceover in a different language, it sort of feels very animated, mechanical. You can easily spot it's a machine generated. Even it doesn't sound good, right? Um, what has been your experience around using tool? Do you think a human in loop is always required to,
Yeah.
translate things?
Yeah, so that's a very good point. So from day one, right, our hypothesis or thesis was to create a blend of human and machine. So with, right, like I mean, if you have seen AI, I think it's more indeterministic, right? Like I mean, it's basically you cannot create like a deterministic applications through. I mean, not like all the applications through deterministic ways. So here also, right, uh, when you are dubbing, right, like in other languages, you're not just doing translation,
Mm-hmm.
you are doing voice performance, we are doing cultural alignment, we are, right, like looking at the time precision. So we take care of a lot of small things, right, like that we have to look into when we are actually dubbing it into multiple languages. And even if you see, right, like I mean, if you see, even with this advent of AI in past couple of years, you're not seeing many movies or many great web series in multiple languages with that level of accuracy and that level of experience,
Right.
right, like that you can
Yeah.
create. That's where, right, like we really want to focus on. So we want to do high quality dubbing in multiple language at scale.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say scale, uh, currently we are working somewhere around 4,000 to 5,000 minutes per month.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2 years, I want to take it to 200,000 minutes per month.
Got it. Uh, when we speak about translation and especially using AI for translation, when you are translating a website or a document, that is pretty straightforward and that is somewhat cracked by AI by today. But
Yes,
when you are speaking of dubbing, I think there are a lot of workflows involved. You have to, do the pausings right. It has to sound human-like, and a lot of different aspects around that. Can you
right.
can you tell what are the workflows involved in a typical dubbing process? Let's say you are translating a English movie to Hindi, uh,
Right,
for example. What
right.
are the different workflows involved in that?
That's a very good question. So I'll take you right. Like, and this can be true for any movie or any experience, right? Like that you're or any type of video, right? Like you need to go through certain processes. So I'll just take you through quickly, right? Like the processes, and we'll explain you, and then you'll be able to understand, right? Like how complicated, right? Like this dubbing industries and it's very human dependent as well, and why it is so, right? Like you'll be able to, right, like connect the dots. So what happens, right? Like when we receive video, we first of all find, right, like which genre that video is from. Then we do the transcription. Now this is auto transcription of the video, right? Like where we like the subtitles, right, like of the videos.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Here, right, like again, most of the times, I mean, depending on the language, what we have seen, the accuracy can range somewhere from 60% to sometimes 95% as well.
Yeah.
Then that remaining part, right, like is done by human. After that, it goes to translation. Now, when it goes to translation, it again looks for the context. If we have done that something similar in the past, we have created some memories and some small LLMs, right, like around those series that we use, right, like as a support for translation. So we use multiple agents as well for translating. So one agent understands it, like which domain or which genre, right? Like that movie is from, whether it's a horror movie, romantic movie, or I mean, it figures it out. Then the second, bot actually it goes and does the translation. Third one does the QA, and QA also, right? Like we create company specific or country specific QA as well. So this happens, right, like with the translation part. Now even with this machine translation, I would say, right, like it's somewhere around 60 to 70% accurate, and sometimes, right, like it can be, right, like you need to actually completely change it as well.
Okay.
Now after translation, it goes to review. That is done by human, where the creative person gets in and it creates the script for that the next video. Then it goes to the voice part, where I mean we have got several ways to do it. We either go with the digital voice, we could go with, right, like human voice, or we can go with the hybrid voice where we can superimpose other person's voice on top of the human voice. So there are multiple, depending on the client requirement, depending on the quality, or depending on the creative decision, we decide that part. Then it goes to voice application. Now if you are going to choose the digital voice or synthetic voice,
Mm-hmm.
we also provide some prompts. Some of the prompts are automatically created. Those detects the emotions, right, like in that particular sentence or that video, and we create the dubbing in very similar emotion with the original one. And that, like when that happens, then you also have to ensure that the time matches. Now if
Mm-hmm.
you see the languages, right, like I mean whatever you would say in English and whatever you would say in perhaps Tamil or Marathi, I mean the length may not be same. So
Yeah.
you have to ensure that that is also adjusted. Now structure of the sentences could also be different, so you have to look into that part as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now after that, right, like I mean you look into this sync part, and we provide two types of syncing. So one is lip match or lip sync, where we train the face and we provide the lip sync also. Generally it is used for podcasts or videos, right, like where there is only one or two speakers.
Mm-hmm.
For movies we use AV sync, which is audio visual sync, where we ensure that the experience is quite similar to what the original video was.
Mm-hmm.
Then it goes again for the final QC, and if there are any changes, we keep on making those changes. And the best part of, right, like using this platform is that if you have to make just one sentence change, or if you have to change, right, like for example, I'll give you an example. After the video is published or after the movie is published, what we have seen is that there are times when the creative people, they ask to change only some part of that video. So for example, change the name of this person to something else,
Mm-hmm.
or if so these things, right, like can be done relatively easily by using such platform, compared to what, right, like currently if you would see, right, like it's done by humans and it's very labor intensive.
Mm. Wow, this is interesting. I think this is such a detailed description of what happens in the back end. And I think without human in the loop, at every stage of this process, it can easily go wrong. Uh,
Right.
Having said that, let's assume that everything was 100% accurate. Then what all tools would you say that you have found very effective at doing? For example, which tool do you find most effective for translation, for transcription, for voiceover? Can you
Yeah.
give some examples?
Right, right. So first of all, right, like let me correct, right, like the first part of your question. I mean, considering that like we have got 100% accurate video, I mean, you will never get 100% accurate video, right? Even with these processes, what we have seen is that there is a loss, right, like of emotion, loss of intent, loss of some of the cultural aspects as well. And we have created right like a framework for that as well. So we have created a framework where there is this like when you're translating or when you're localizing, as I mentioned, we are not just doing the localization of the video, right? Like we are going very deep. So we look at the soul of the language,
Hmm.
right? After that, we look at the culture of the language. Then you have to actually go and see what are the beliefs, right? Like around, that language. Then, how educated, well educated people are, right? Like who are using that language. So there are a lot of things that you need to look at. And translating entertainment part, right, like requires a lot of deep understanding of the language as well. So we are closely working with linguists to help us ensure that we are having minimum loss. And when it comes to dubbing, uh, translation is one thing which you have to look at. But on top of that, right, like I mean, as I mentioned earlier, it's a voice performance. The emotions, right? Like I mean, if they are flat, then people can easily get distracted.
Hmm.
Then we also need to have right like this timing precision also. So there is a loss, right? Like I mean, if I have to say it in other words, I mean there is a loss. It's just that we try to minimize the loss by using processes, by using the right people, and by using the right workflow, right? Like altogether workflow. Now, coming back to your question, what platforms and what tools we use. Um, for auto transcription, I mean we use all the latest tools that are available, right? Like right from I mean Google API, Microsoft API to we also use right like Amazon. So whatever that is available, we have got one R&D team. Their focus is only on finding out like what are the best tools that are available in the market and use them right like through API.
Hmm.
What we do is, of course, right, like once we get the tools and if some of the tools are open source, we do some refinement, right, like on top of the tools. So auto transcription we use, right, like tool for translation also. We have around 8 9 translation platforms or APIs that we use,
Hmm.
third party APIs. We also have built our own. We have created something that is also right like useful, which is called memory. And again, it is quite important because when you're doing right like any series, you want
Hmm.
to ensure that you are keeping consistency throughout the series, right? Like names are used in a right way. The Perhaps right like department names, right? Like they are used consistently throughout the series. So all these things, right, like happen through the memory that we have created, right, like within Rian. Now, after that, right, like when we use this voice, and as you rightly said, I mean, we are using almost all the latest voice applications that are available. And on top of that, we have also built like our own layer, right, like on top of that. And we also have all these, I mean, most of these, right, like I wouldn't know, but there is this open source framework, RVC framework. We also, right, like have gone deep, right, like into that. And we have also tried like a lot of things on top of that as well. Uh, then in video also, video syncing, we have developed right like some part where we put right like all these files together. We do right like subtitling in different ways. So some part like over there, if you see over the time, right, like when we build the platform, we have created right like our own ways. But we also use right like we are also exploring third party platforms and tools to use them
Hmm.
to make right like the experience again for us. AI is enabler, right? Like AI now, AI has become commodity. If you see all these tools, right, like are commodity. We just are picking up the right one, and where we think that like we need to bring some intelligence, we bring some human aspect, or we need to fine tune it the way we want to do it, we use, right, like our AI and like our solutions on top of that.
Got it. Uh, I have a abstract question around this AI being an enabler. I think one good thing AI is doing, especially in the front of translation, is it is breaking the barrier of internet. So, internet has always been on English. English has been the language of internet for quite some time now. But because AI is so good at translating things in real time, not just text now, it's translating the videos, audios, and yeah, there are some flaws in it, but eventually it will be perfected as a technology. What is your thought on, AI enabling people from different languages to access internet, to use it in their own language? And AI is sort of bringing in lot more diverse set of people to internet, enabling them with technology and enabling them with the tools that they can use to do various sort of things.
Right, right, right. So, Priya, this is really a nice question. And, I have also been thinking quite a lot, right? Like what we should do, right? Like with this platform. So, now, if you see that uh, the language, right, that is available on internet, right, like is primarily English, and our local languages, right, like are not as much as they should be. But what I think is, this is a great opportunity for all of us, right, like to bring, and I think we'll need like active support from government also, right, like on this part, to bring a lot of as much as possible, right, like a great content online, so that we will be able to train that and create like good experiences for the users. But one of the things that we all need to remember is, when we are thinking about the inclusion cannot be just done by providing economic benefits, right, like to the users. I think education, then training, and the training, right, like are very crucial foundational factors, right, like for any human being.
Mhm.
And we get that training in our generally, right, like I mean, it's very effective when we are taking that training, right, like in our mother tongue. And just to give you an example, and I had been testing this for quite some time, when I'm actually
Mhm.
reading the book, you get, right, like a different way of understanding it. Now we don't read a lot in our own local language as well, so we don't have, right, like that much reading culture. But if you have to not only preserve but ensure that like we bring that inclusivity, we need to make the content in the local languages also, so that more people will be educated, more people will get access to, I would call, right, like asymmetric information that is available, right, like in the world. And perhaps, right, like we'll be able to see more democratization, right, like of the things that are happening. So I mean, we are going in the right way, but the whole idea of making language accessible in your own language would making videos, right, like accessible in your own language, will make the world flat, like quick, in a quicker way, right, like we don't have to actually just learn, right, like English for that. And what I've seen, that when I'm reading or when I'm listening to any book or any summary or any podcast in my own language, I'm able to connect more dots. So perhaps, right, like I mean, more content if we are able to create, right, like for example, imagine that like we are translating or we are localizing this podcast in Kannada or Tamil. Maybe people from Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, right, like would be able to connect to it, right, like even more, right, like in a deeper way. So if we
Right.
are able to bring that, I think we'll be able to bring, right, like more inclusive world. That's what I feel.
Absolutely. The other area you were working on, and I think we briefly touched upon that, is voice AI. I think voice as a mode has sort of seen a lot of innovation in last 3 years. And in the so for example, the latency has reduced. So that was a big obstacle of commercializing voice AI because of the latency, the time it takes to process a voice input and then revert back to the customer or the user at the other end. Similarly, translation was a challenge. Voice was not sounding humanly That was a bigger challenge. Anybody could make out that it's a robot speaking at the other end. But now you can barely distinguish between a human voice and a robotic voice. And so a lot of such innovations been happening. How do you think uh, voice AI is transforming the business? What are the use cases which have come up, and what has been your experience around voice AI? And one particular aspect about voice AI, it is perfectly replacing the customer support agents. And India has been a big market for customer support agents, and voice AI is sort of disrupting that. What is your commentary on that?
Yes. So, is it disrupt? Like, I mean, the recent synthetic voices that we are seeing right now. I mean, they are absolutely, like sound real, right? Like, so if you see, there has been disruption, right? Like in the voice industry, and many voiceover artists, right? Like have also seen that disruption, and uh, I've also seen that a lot of AI, the calls that you receive now are most of the calls, right? Like could be AI calls as well. I mean, you can create a lot of applications around it as well. So has it created, right? Like, has this new, voice AI has created any impact? Yes, definitely. Like it has created impact. So in my opinion, anything that is methodical, right? Like anything that is where the emotions are less, anything that is more directional or directive, right? Like would be replaced with AI. Anything that has to do, right? Like with the experience. So Priya, as you would have seen, right? We are living in attention economy.
Right.
More time, right? Like you're spending on the video, more economy or more benefits, right? Like the creator would get. So when we are localizing or dubbing any video, we have to ensure that the quality is so good that people are able to listen to the video to the fullest length or maximum length. And that happens when you bring that cultural nuances, emotions, depth in the voice, and these things, maybe AI will be able to get us up to 70, 80, maybe 85%. But
Mm.
rest of that 15%, right? Like, I mean, creates a meaningful impact, right? Like in terms of the bringing the meaningful value, right? Like for that content. So that's where, right? Like we are working with this human and machine combination, where machine, right? Like helps us speed up the process, bring the
Mm.
consistency, and human will bring the emotional depth. So coming back to the again, like your question, yes, it will. The AI, right, like will definitely disrupt. There will be some industries where the application is more. There are areas where you need creative part, including, right, like when you need to include that, there is still, right, like a human intervention which is required.
Mm. Correct. And this is my final question. Speaking on the same topic, speaking on the human intervention, I think you have beautifully kind of cracked the code to how do you infuse human and AI and build a system around it. I think that's going to be the future. Every job is going to evolve into that. Every job will require people to learn AI and be able to work with AI models. Uh, because you cannot automate 100% of anything with AI, like you rightly mentioned. You gave example from entertainment industry, but it also holds true for a medical practitioner. A doctor can leverage AI. AI today is giving better diagnosis and better prescription for a disease compared to any doctor available in the world. But still, you go to a doctor, you do not go to a AI. And similarly, if you talk about financial workflows, AI is there to detect fraud, do a lot of things in finance, but still you need human in the loop for that 1% or 10% cases where AI will be wrong. Having said that, what is your general commentary on what will be the future of any job out there? Because I personally believe every job will require human in the loop. AI will do 90% of every job in the future, and the remaining 10% where AI is not good at. will be done by humans. What would be your thought on that?
Yeah. So look, I mean, I won't be able to give comments on all type of jobs, but what I can tell you, right, like especially in this translation and localization industry, we believe, right, like internally within the company, is that the translators, right, like now would be perhaps replaced by new age linguists, where they are not just focusing on this linguistic aspect, but they are also looking at the technology side, how to use it. And in the platform, what we have done is you don't need to understand, right, like the technology, how to do code, but you need to understand, right, like how you can leverage the existing technology to make the experience seamless.
Hmm.
So, in other words, uh, I believe, right, like this new age linguist will not only just transform the content by using their linguist skills, but they will also bring emotional depth. They will also bring cultural nuances, and they will bring this scale by using AI. And AI by using right tools at right places, which is very important. And blending everything together, creating the platform, and making a seamless experience is something that we are also focusing on.
Got it. All right. So on this note, we will close the session. Thanks for joining us, Anand. Very
Thank you.
interesting session. I think I personally learned a lot of things about how AI is being used in entertainment industry. And kudos to you for the work that you are doing. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you.